Arya's point of view. Liam gaped at him in disbelief. What? I don't understand. Why? He stammered. Knox didn't reply. He just stood there with an unflinching gaze. It was Alpha Maxwell that repeated the question. Knox, what do you mean? He asked in obvious confusion. You told me the first day I came here that I could pick any female I wanted, Knox replied. Maxwell furrowed his eyebrows. Yeah, but you said you weren't interested. I've always made that offer to you whenever you come around, but you've never been interested. Knox shrugged nonchalantly. Well, now I am, and Arya is who I am interested in. Maxwell looked at Knox oddly. But isn't she too young for you? She is more in Liam's age group. I can get you someone more experienced and mature, Maxwell urged. I hid a snarl at that suggestion. Rhea, my wolf, growled lightly. Knox was our mate. How dare they? Knox's gaze did not waver. There will be no need for that. Brother, I want Arya. Liam shook his head frantically. No, please, uncle, she is mine. Knox gave him an icy look. How is she yours? I believe you have a fated mate already. She is yours, not Arya. Liam shook his head. But you don't understand, uncle. Knox lifted his hand to silence Liam. I am not talking to you, boy. Know your place, he warned sharply, and Liam flushed in embarrassment. Knox turned to Maxwell. Why is your son claiming ownership over a female that isn't his mate? He asked, with a disgusted frown. Maxwell scratched the back of his neck with a sheepish smile. Well, Liam tells me that they were lovers before he found his mate. So you understand why Arya is. No, I don't understand, Knox stated with a frown. Liam is a spoiled brat who wants to eat his cake and still have it. Liam scowled. Hey, he protested. Quiet, Knox snapped with dark eyes, and Liam's mouth snapped shut. I have said what I want. Arya is leaving with me, Knox said with finality in his voice. Maxwell ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Brother, please just consider my son. He really wants Arya. If it is the young ones you prefer, we have so many of them in. Then let Liam choose from the many ones you have. Besides, why are we talking about Arya as though she were an object? She is capable of making her decisions and choosing what she wants. Knox retorted. Or are you going to force your decision on her, like how you tried to force yourself on her yesterday in the hallway? Liam's face soured. He wasn't expecting Knox to bring it up. But uncle, he started. Is this true, Liam? Were you trying to force yourself on Arya? Maxwell asked, with a displeased frown on his face. Liam clenched his jaw. Father, I didn't. So are you calling me a liar? Knox said calmly, but his voice tinged with an edge. No, Liam slumped in defeat with a sigh. But I apologized, he mumbled weakly. Only because I forced you to, Knox added coldly. Then he turned to me with soft eyes sparkling with mischief. He was enjoying himself. Arya, it is your choice. If you want to stay here with Liam or come with me, you decide for yourself, he said, looking at me with amusement shining in his eyes. I bit my lips to hide my smile. I'll come with you, your majesty, I murmured, gazing up at him from between my lashes. Knox inhaled sharply, and his eyes burned with hunger. Someone knocked on the door of the Alpha's office, and without waiting for a response, entered the office. It was Veronica Hall, Liam's fake-fated mate. As she entered, she glanced around and noticed the atmosphere. Am I interrupting something? She asked, furrowing her eyebrows, but her eyes gleamed. She knew that she was interrupting something. She must have heard that I was summoned to the Alpha's office, and she was curious about it. Liam scowled at her in annoyance. He knew that her presence was going to complicate matters for him. No, we're done here, Knox stated, without even a glance in her direction. His eyes were fixed on mine with a primal hunger in them. Brother, please consider your nephew. Maxwell pleaded one last time. Knox gave him a hard stare. My decision stands. Maxwell, you are not going to change my mind, he said with finality. Maxwell sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Knox, please, this isn't just about you and Arya. It is about what I want, Knox interrupted firmly with authority in his voice. And I want her. Knox wasn't talking to Maxwell as a younger brother. He was talking to Maxwell as the Alpha King himself. When Maxwell noted it, his expression hardened. Fine, go ahead, but don't expect me to forget about all of this. Knox, I am not expecting anything from you, Knox replied coolly. I watched Veronica's mouth fall open in shock. Then she cleared her throat. Please, Uncle Knox, can I say something? She muttered with a soft and innocent look on her face. I watched in disgust as she bit her lower lip seductively and pushed her chest up so that her breasts were more noticeable. Knox turned to her with a sharp glare. I don't remember giving you the permission to call me by my name. You call me Alpha Blackwood or Your Majesty. Is that clear? He scolded. She turned pink in embarrassment and she shrank back, but that didn't stop her from saying what she wanted to. But Arya is a whore, she declared, and the room fell into a tense silence. Knox tensed, and he looked like he was restraining himself from attacking her. If I were you, I would choose my next words carefully, he growled threateningly. Her eyes widened in fear. No, but it is true, Your Majesty. I have heard people talking about it. There is someone she has been sleeping with. Their moans and grunts were overheard everywhere, she reported. Then she gave me a look of triumph. She felt like she had won, if only she knew. I gave her a small smile, and she frowned, slightly confused by my lack of reaction. However, Liam growled possessively, and he turned to me, his eyes blazing in fury. Who the fuck have you been fucking, you slut? Liam barked, spittle flying from his mouth. Arya's point of view. You told me that you were keeping yourself for your fucking mate, Liam growled. His eyes blazed in fury and frustration. He was finding it hard to express himself the way he wanted to, because that would mean exposing to everyone in the room that we were formerly mates. So you see, Veronica continued with a smug smile, Arya is a whore. Liam was finding it hard to restrain himself from lunging at me. It was Knox's presence, besides me, that stopped him. Who is he, huh? Who is that fucking bastard? Tell me so I can rip his fucking head off, Liam barked. Calm down, Liam. Why are you getting so agitated? Maxwell asked with a curious look on his face. Liam clamped his mouth shut, grinding his teeth in fury as he glared at me venomously. Knox's jaw tightened, and he gave Veronica an icy glare. Did you see who this person was? He asked coldly. Veronica's smile faltered slightly. No, Your Majesty, she admitted, glancing around for help. But people heard it. The noises, the moans and grunts, they came from her room. Knox's gaze hardened, and he took a step toward her. So you heard sounds, he drawled with disdain in his voice, and that is enough for you to label her a whore. Veronica paled, losing all her confidence. I only meant to inform you, Your Majesty, she stammered with a shaky voice. I just thought you should know the truth. Knox lifted an eyebrow. The truth, huh? Then his lips spread into a lethal smirk, and his eyes sparkled mischievously. Since you are so curious, Vanessa, he drawled, purposely using a wrong name, perhaps you would like to know who has been in Arya's room. Liam's eyes were burning with rage and curiosity, but he kept his mouth shut. He also wanted to know. Maxwell looked exhausted already, while Knox looked like he was having so much fun. Veronica's eyes widened in surprise. Knox's smirk widened. Then listen closely. He paused for a dramatic effect. The so-called bastard that Liam is looking for is standing right in front of you. Silence filled the room. Veronica's mouth fell open, and her eyes widened in disbelief. Liam clenched his fists, and his face twisted with rage as he realized what Knox meant. But Veronica began, her voice almost a whisper. You? Yes, me, Knox interrupted with a mocking tone. The sounds you heard coming from Arya's room was because I was there. You see, I tend to be very thorough with things I want. Veronica's face flushed red at Knox's words, while Liam's face reddened even further in anger. You fucking bitch. You are fucking my uncle behind my back. You said you were keeping yourself for your mate. You fucking whore. Liam lunged towards me with a roar, but before he could take another step, Knox released a low, deep and bone-chilling growl that echoed through the room. Every single person in the room froze. I could feel the dangerous force pouring out from Knox. He glared at Liam with a heavy intensity, and I held a gasp as his eyes flashed an unusual shade of crimson for a split second. You dare, Knox growled. His voice was so dark that it sent a shiver down my spine. It was nothing like the Knox I knew. Liam recoiled as if he had been burned, and he trembled at the fierce look in Knox's eyes. The anger in Liam's eyes had now been replaced with fear. I could see that even Maxwell was shaken by Knox's presence. However, despite the tension that filled the room, I felt a strange sense of safety. Knox turned back to Veronica with a calm voice that was scary. And as for you, he started, and Veronica shrank back. Be very careful about the rumors and lies you spread, because next time I won't be so lenient, understood? Veronica stammered, Yes, Your Majesty. Knox glanced around the room with a hard gaze before he turned to me with a soft expression. Now, Arya, he murmured, reaching for my hand, can we leave this pitiful place? I am afraid I have overstayed my welcome. We will leave today. I nodded mutely and followed him out of the tense office. As I passed, I glanced at Liam. His eyes burned with hatred, and I knew that he wasn't going to let go so easily. We didn't say a word till we got back to my room. When we got back, I sat on my bed and watched as Knox paced the room, clearly agitated. How dare he? What was he thinking of doing? If he had laid a finger on you, I would have ripped all his fingers out with my bare hands, he barked. Do you know how angry I was when he kept trying to claim you? My mate, he growled in rage. I wish I had told them you were my mate, so that they would know that you are all mine, mine. A warm feeling rushed through me as Knox continued ranting. I sighed, standing up from the bed and walking over to him. Knox, I called softly, and he paused instantly. I watched as his face visibly softened as he turned to me. I love you, and I cannot wait to follow you to your pack and be yours forever, I murmured softly with a shy smile. His eyes brightened and he grinned happily. Oh, my little angel, I love you so much, he exclaimed and pressed a kiss on my lips. It dawned on me then that it was the first time any of us had said, I love you. I wrapped my arms around his neck as I deepened the kiss with a groan. Knox smiled against my lips as his hands came down to hold me by my waist, to pull me closer to him. His tongue slipped into my mouth, and I moaned as pleasure coursed through me. So, Knox murmured huskily, gazing at me intensely, do you want to see if you can stay quiet one more time before we leave? I grinned up at him, and he smirked mischievously. Arya's point of view. Knox had gone back to his room in the pack to prepare for his departure, and I prepared for mine also as I gathered the little miserable belongings that I had in my room. As I packed, I felt no sadness or sense of loss. All I felt was excitement and anticipation. I couldn't wait to be free from this place. Someone knocked on the door of my room, and I furrowed my eyebrows in thought. Who could it be? It couldn't be Mama Fells. She never knocked. It couldn't be Knox. He wouldn't knock because he knew he didn't need to. I felt a sliver of fear as I wondered if it was Liam who was back for revenge. Who is it? I called, making sure I kept my voice steady. It is me, a familiar voice replied, Claire. I paused. What was Claire doing here? After all those things she said the last time, what else was she here for? I reluctantly opened the door, and I stood in front of the door frame, with a cold expression on my face. Claire had a somber expression on her face. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. She sighed. "I am sorry, Arya, for everything, for those awful things I said to you and how I acted. I am really sorry. I hope you can forgive me, and I hope we can still be friends," she said softly. My heart softened. She was here to make amends. Truthfully, I was still hurt by her words, but there was no point holding onto it. "Of course I forgive you. You are my friend, Claire," I replied with a soft smile. She smiled, with tears in her eyes. "Really?" I nodded, yes. I finally stepped aside for her to come in, closing the door behind me. It was now I felt sadness. I was leaving the pack when I was just making amends with my friend. "Can I help you pack?" she offered. "Oh, I am almost done actually, but thanks for offering," I replied. Then I furrowed my eyebrows. How did she know I was packing? She must have heard that I was leaving with the Alpha King, and she thought she should come make amends now. However, something didn't sit right with me. Something felt off. "So, Arya, the Alpha King, huh?" she started, tapping on the walls softly and absent-mindedly. "How did that happen?" she asked. Suddenly, I realized that I didn't want to tell her anything about Nox or how we met. "I don't know, it just happened, I guess," I replied vaguely, turning back to put my things in my bag. She chuckled lightly, but it sounded so fake. "Oh, come on, Arya. Things like this don't just happen like that. I need details, tell me more," she insisted. I shrugged innocently. "Seriously, Claire, it just happened. I can't even explain." She clenched her jaw slightly, but she quickly hid it with a smile. Her mask was slipping. "Really, well, that is so sweet." She gave me a saccharine smile. I was no longer comfortable with her being there. So I guess I'll be leaving soon. I'll keep in touch," I said, indirectly dismissing her. She smiled. "Well, can I ask a favor for old time's sake?" Suspicion crept in as I watched her and reluctantly nodded. "Sure, what do you need?" I asked, praying that I was just being suspicious about nothing. She chewed the insides of her mouth before she replied. "I need you to put in a good word for me. Whatever you are doing for the Alpha King, convince him that I can also do it." I blinked in surprise. What was she saying? "Whatever I am doing for the Alpha King, what exactly are you saying, Claire?" I queried with narrowed eyes. She shrugged. "Well, you can tell him I am also very good in bed, that I can satisfy him as well." I gaped at her in dismay. How could she even say that? "Claire, is that really what you think about me?" I inquired, as the pain of her words pierced through me. She turned to me. "Oh, come on, Arya. First it was with Liam and now the Alpha King. You are ambitious, and that is fine. I am not judging you because I also need that. So if you..." Rage coursed through me, and I clenched my jaw. "Get out," I gritted through clenched teeth. She paused in confusion. "I am sorry, what?" I glared at her venomously. I said, "Get out," I snapped, taking a step forward. "How dare you come here and insult me again? Are you calling me a whore?" She didn't look remorseful. She just furrowed her eyebrows at me. "Isn't that what the Alpha King is taking you to be? Everyone knows that the two of you have been fucking like bunnies. Veronica told us. So why else will he be taking you with him if not to be his whore?" she replied. At that moment, I almost yelled out that I was his mate. That was the reason I was going with him. But she wasn't worth it, and she wouldn't believe me. I released a deep breath as I controlled my anger. I was done with Claire. "Get out, Claire. Don't ever talk to me again," I said firmly, glaring at her. Claire gave me a look of contempt before she walked out. "You are too selfish, Arya," she hissed over her shoulder as she walked out. I slammed the door hard behind her. As the rage simmered down, sadness came, and tears flowed down my face. Claire's words were so hurtful, and it was probably what everyone else in the pack was thinking, thanks to Veronica. The only person I would ever miss was Mama Fells. Maybe I could talk to her to come with me to Nox's pack, but I highly doubted if she would agree. As I finished packing, I left my room and went to talk to Mama Fells. Before I could knock, the door swung open. "What?" Mama Fells stood there with a glare on her face. When she finally noticed that I was the one, she turned back inside, leaving the door open for me like the last time. I cringed. She was pissed. Again, Arya's point of view. "I swear, those fucking gossips have nothing better to do in life," Mama Fells growled, plopping down on her worn-out couch with a groan. My heart ached as I glanced around Mama Fells's place. This was my childhood home. Mama Fells had unofficially adopted me when I was being bullied relentlessly. She did that to put a warning sign on my head to stop others from bullying me. When she adopted me, she warned me several times. "I am not your fucking mother, so don't expect me to act like one. Only come to me for help during a life or death situation," she said several times. However, when I came to her for little things that were unnecessary, she would glare at me, but still do it. If I didn't come to her for help, and I messed up, she would still glare at me while she helped me fix up my mess. My heart ached as I looked around the chaotic place that had always been my sanctuary. Mama Fells may have glared, growled, and cussed, but she had saved me more times than I could count. I sat down quietly, waiting for Mama Fells to finish grumbling about the gossip and cursing them out, feeling a wave of déjà vu settle over me. It was exactly like last time when the lies about Liam and I were spread. Mama Fells sighed and turned to me. "This time, though, I am sure that the majority of this fucking gossip is true." My heart felt heavy as I nodded, giving her a small smile. "So, Arya, you'll be leaving Mama Fells soon, huh?" she teased, her eyes twinkling. At that point, I couldn't help it as tears welled up in my eyes at her words. "I don't want to leave you here, Mama Fells," I mumbled, my voice shaking. She shrugged, giving me a rare smile. "But you have to." I shook my head, tears blurring my eyes. "Please come with me, Mama Fells. I'll be there in a new place all alone. I need you," I pleaded, tears running down my face. She gave me another smile and shook her head with a soft expression on her face. "No, can't do, Arya," she said firmly. "But why?" I begged, my voice cracking. She leaned back with an unreadable expression on her face. "First, you are not alone. You have your mate with you, the fucking Alpha King himself. Second, this place is mine." She glanced at the room. "I built this life no matter how fucked up it might seem. It is not much, but it is home. I am too fucking old to move away and start afresh someplace else." "You'll have me," I whispered with a sad smile, my voice trembling. Mama Fells leaned forward with a sharp glare. "No, kid, you've got to do this on your own. You've got your mate now. He is your future. Mine's here in this fucked up pack." I sniffed, keeping my eyes on the floor. "I don't know if I can do this, Mama Fells. What if I mess it up? What if they all hate me? He is the Alpha King." She snorted, rolling her eyes. "Who fucking cares? Screw them. You are fucking tough, Arya. I didn't waste several fucking years of my short life raising a pussy. Or did I?" I shook my head, wiping my cheeks as I pulled myself together. "You are not coming, no matter what I say, are you?" I asked softly. Mama Fells smirked, shaking her head slowly. "Nope." I laughed as a bittersweet feeling settled in my chest. "You are impossible, you know that." She leaned back in her chair. "Fuck yeah." We sat in comfortable silence for a minute. "I'll come back and visit," I promised softly. Mama Fells arched an eyebrow. "To do what? This pack is a fucking mess. You don't come back for anything. Call me if you fucking need anything." As I stood to leave, Mama Fells grabbed my wrist with a firm grip. "Take care of yourself, Arya, and don't let that fucking Alpha King deceive you with his nice looks and actions. He is not all that he seems to be," she said, and her eyes flashed with a dark look. My heart raced in my chest at her words. This wasn't the first time that Mama Fells had been giving me dark warnings about Knox. Mama Fells, what are you not telling me? I asked with a shaky voice. She gave me a smirk. I am just messing with you, Arya. Go on, your future awaits you, she said dismissively. Before I could protest, she stood up abruptly and shooed me toward the door. Out, Arya. Go on now before I fucking change my mind about you leaving. I hesitated, searching her face for a sign that she was joking about Knox, but her expression was back to her normal scowl. I reluctantly stepped out. Mama Fells. I turned back with a sigh as I remembered that it might probably be the last time I might see her again. She crossed her arms with a smirk. Don't get all mushy on me now, kid. You'll be fine. I smiled softly at her words. I love you, Mama Fells. She rolled her eyes, but her eyes were warm. Yeah. I fucking love you too. Now go, and don't ever forget who you fucking are, Arya. As I turned to go back to my room, Mama Fells's words came back to me. She tried to dismiss it as a joke, but I couldn't forget the look in her eyes as she said it. Knox had gone to see her that morning. What had happened? Was Mama Fells really just joking? Or did I really have something to worry about? Arya's point of view. Walking back to my room became a daunting task. As the news had spread, the pointing fingers and sneering looks were worse this time. I could hear the whispers of whore left and right. A few female pack members had asked me the same question that Claire had asked me with fake smiles and laughs. I understood why they thought that way. There was no other reason that the Alpha King would want me, if not to be his whore. It made sense in their eyes. But it still hurt because it wasn't true. I didn't want them to get to me, but it was impossible. Immediately I got to my room. I quickly closed the door and leaned my forehead against the door with a sigh. Even though we had both agreed to keep our status as mates secret for security purposes, a small part of me was tired of the drama of always hiding my mate from people. This sucks, I muttered to myself. Thank the goddess we were leaving today because I wasn't sure I could bear another second in the Grey Moon Pack. The hairs on the back of my neck rose as I realized that someone else was in the room with me. However, before I could get worried, I recognized the familiar scent of peppermint and cedar. Knox. I turned to face him, forcing a smile on my face. Hey, I am done packing. Are we leaving now? He didn't reply. He watched me with a strange look on his face. I furrowed my eyebrows at him. Knox, what is it? I asked. He stepped closer to me and held my chin gently, with an unreadable expression on his face. You are upset, he murmured softly. I shook my head with another forced smile. I am fine. It is nothing, I replied, trying to turn away from his intense gray eyes that felt like they were staring into my soul. He tightened his grip slightly on my chin, forcing me to stay put. Anything that upsets you, it is not nothing. What is it? He asked softly. I looked away from his eyes. I am fine, Knox. I just want us to leave. Look at me, Arya, he said firmly. Tell me what made you upset. Tears pricked the edge of my eyes, and I scowled internally. How many times was I going to cry today? Knox placed a soft kiss on my lips. Tell me, my little miracle. I am not at ease. My wolf wants to find whoever must have made you upset and give you their heads, arms, and legs. I cringed at the imagery. Then I sighed. It is fine, Knox. His eyes tightened slightly with worry. Is it because of me? He asked. I furrowed my eyebrows. What? I asked. Are you upset with me? Did I do something wrong? Have you changed your mind about coming with me? He asked, with an uncertain look in his eyes as he watched me carefully. I shook my head frantically. No, Knox. It is not you. It is just I know it shouldn't disturb me, but I sighed again. I moved away from Knox and sat down on my awful bed. News has spread about me leaving with you. I started, picking the thread on the bed to avoid looking at him. And I am being called a whore, I whispered softly. There was silence for a moment. and I lifted my eyes to see Knox's reaction, and I was taken aback. Knox's eyes were narrowed, and they blazed with rage. His fists were clenched, and his body was tensed. "Who called you a whore?" he growled. I shrugged, releasing a deep breath. "Just let it be, Knox. It is practically the whole pack that feels that way, and I don't blame them. I just want us to be out of here as soon as possible." "Arya," he growled darkly. "Just leave it, Knox. I'll be fine when I am out of here. I have spoken to Mama Fells, and I have said my goodbyes. There is nothing left for me here." I added with a small smile that was more genuine than the previous ones. Knox didn't relax. He began pacing my room in agitation. "How dare they?" he murmured with venom in his voice. "They dare to disrespect my mate," he growled, and I noticed his eyes flash that odd crimson color, and I froze. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or I was imagining it, or Mama Fells's words flashed through my head, and a slight shiver ran down my spine. "They should be punished. They should face the consequences," Knox continued passionately. He really was pissed off at the pack's actions towards me. I shook my head internally. No, I wouldn't allow Mama Fells's words make me see Knox in a bad light. Knox was loving, caring, protective, and kind on most occasions. Besides, there was a possibility she was really joking. "They dare to disrespect the Luna Queen," Knox barked, still pacing. My heart raced at that title, the Luna Queen. I was no longer a worthless Omega with no last name. I was now the Luna Queen. After a while, I stood up from the bed and stood in Knox's pacing path, forcing him to stop his pacing. When his furious eyes turned to me, they softened, but he was still furious. I placed my hand on his broad chest gently. "Come on, Knox. You can't actually punish them for all the things they said. They are ignorant. They don't know we're mates. To them, I am a worthless Omega that enticed the Alpha King with my body." Knox's eyes sparkled slightly with mischief. "Well, you did entice me with your body, little miracle," he whispered softly. I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped me. "So they're not completely wrong," I said playfully with a shrug. Knox paused and watched me for a moment with a thoughtful expression on his face. "Knox, what is making you think so hard?" I asked with a small smile. He blinked and gave me a grin. "Just thinking of how awesome you are, little angel." I grinned, blushing at his words. He placed a chaste kiss on my lips. "I love you," he said softly. "I love you too," I replied. He looked better now, more relaxed. "So, when are we leaving?" I asked. An unreadable expression crossed his face as he replied, "Soon. I just need to handle a few things." I nodded in understanding. "Okay, I'll be here waiting." As Knox got to the door, he turned to me with the same unreadable expression on his face, before he walked out with a resigned sigh. He mumbled something under his breath that sounded something like, "Forgive me, Arya." I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion. What was I to forgive him for? Then I shook my head, dismissing that thought. I must have misheard him. I sat patiently there, waiting for Knox, ignorant of what he was planning. Arya's point of view. I was getting slightly antsy. It had almost been an hour, and I hadn't heard anything from Knox. I really wanted to leave the Grey Moon Pack as soon as possible. He had said he needed to handle a few things before leaving. Maybe those things were delaying him, I thought to myself. I waited and waited. It was getting harder to sit still, and I began pacing like Knox. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, a knock sounded on the door. I rushed to the door with a smile on my face. However, my smile faded when I saw that it wasn't Knox. I furrowed my eyebrows as I stared at the unfamiliar man that stood before me. He had warm brown eyes that shone with kindness. He had dark black hair neatly combed back and a grin on his face. He had a muscular frame. He was wider than Knox, but he was shorter than Knox. I knew he wasn't from the Grey Moon Pack. I was sure of it. However, for some reason I wasn't worried or uncomfortable. The boyish grin on his face put me at ease. He looked to be in his mid-20s. "Good evening, Luna Aria," he greeted me, bowing with a dramatic flourish that brought an instant smile to my face. He must be with Nox, because he knew that I was Nox's mate. The excitement of leaving the pack that was fading came back instantly. I was leaving now. Finally. "Good evening. Please call me Aria. How can I help you?" "Are we leaving now?" I asked. His grin widened. "My name is Sean Thatcher, and I am the Gamma of the Moonshadow Pack, third in command to the Alpha King." He introduced himself, puffing up his chest ridiculously. I bit my lips to keep myself from laughing as he continued with a straight face. "I have been sent by the Alpha King to escort you to a very important gathering taking place now," he declared. Curiosity flared within me. What was the important gathering for? It was probably Nox warning and threatening the pack for calling me a whore. I cringed. I had told him to just leave it since we would be leaving soon. I braced myself for the pointing fingers and the looks I was going to get. "All right, Gamma Sean, please lead the way," I replied, matching his ridiculous tone. I braced myself for whatever I was going to face as Sean led me through the hallways. "Do you know what the gathering is about?" I asked Sean. He shrugged. "No idea, I am just following instructions," he replied. However, he had an odd look in his eyes. I gaped at him in disbelief. "You know," I exclaimed, pointing accusingly at him. He scratched the back of his neck. "I can't talk about it, but we're here now," he announced. I gave him a light glare as he led me to the large grand hall of the pack. As we walked in, nobody noticed us coming in except Nox. All eyes were on Nox. His imposing presence drew the attention of everyone. He stood on the stage of the grand hall and casually placed his hands in his pockets, but I could see the rage burning in his eyes. There were murmurs across the room as they stood, waiting for Nox to address them. I noticed Alpha Maxwell and his family, Liam, Flora, and Veronica, standing at the corner of the stage, sulking and glaring. Nox must have forced them to gather the pack members against their will. The moment I walked in, Nox's eyes snapped to mine like a magnet. He gave me a pleading look before he cleared his throat to grab the attention of everyone. Instantly, all forms of conversation ceased, and the room fell silent like a graveyard. "I know everyone is curious, wondering why I gathered you all here," he started with an authoritative voice. "I have an announcement to make," he declared. "I have found my mate." The silence in the room broke, and loud murmurs and cheers erupted across the room. I could see Nox's family clapping. Liam clapped the hardest with a smile on his face, probably happy that Nox would not take me with him. I could see Veronica, Claire, and the other females in the pack giving me mocking smiles and taunting smirks. They were also happy about this news because it meant that I probably wasn't going with Nox again. However, I myself was unsure about it. A sense of déjà vu settled in me, and I saw Liam standing on that stage, announcing Veronica as his mate instead of me. Fear gripped me as I imagined history repeating itself. My mind flashed back to Nox's last words to me. "Forgive me, Aria." What if he had changed his mind about taking me with him, and he had seen someone more fitting to be his mate than an Omega without a last name? "I would like to introduce her to the pack before I leave today." Everyone a loud round of applause and cheers for my mate, your Luna Queen. The cheers and applause increased as everyone looked around for who it could be. "Aria!" As Nox's voice echoed in the room, my heart pounded harder. Was this truly happening? Was this real? My heart stopped beating for a moment, before a wave of relief crashed through me. He wasn't Liam. Nox wasn't Liam. I reminded myself. He announced me, a lowly Omega, as his mate publicly. However, the room fell silent as everyone's faces twisted in confusion and disbelief. Nox continued as though he hadn't just dropped a bombshell on them. "We have been seeing each other secretly, but as we're leaving now, we wanted you all to know," he added with an innocent smile on his face, but his eyes shone with mischief. He locked eyes with me from across the room. "Arya, my love, please come forward so that the pack can celebrate you properly," he called. I avoided people's eyes, keeping my eyes on the ground as I walked towards the stage. Sean walked beside me with a hard expression on his face. There was no form of playfulness in them as he made the crowd part way for us. Nox's eyes darkened in warning. "Is that how you welcome your Luna Queen? No applause or cheers?" Nox growled. His voice cut through the murmurs. Reluctantly, the crowd began to clap. As I climbed on the stage, I kept my eyes on the ground, afraid of what I would see if I lifted my eyes. "This is Arya, my mate, my second half, my everything, and your Luna Queen," he declared loudly. The murmurs in the room increased in volume as they stared at me in disbelief and shock. "No, it can't fucking be," a familiar voice roared furiously. Liam Reed. Arya's point of view. "No, it can't fucking be," a familiar voice roared furiously. Liam Reed. As I turned to look at Liam, I was slightly surprised. I had never seen him that angry before. His face was red, and the veins in his forehead were throbbing. His eyes blazed in fury, and his teeth were clenched tightly. "That can't be fucking true," he repeated with a snarl. Liam Maxwell warned, placing a firm hand on his shoulder to hold him back from doing something stupid. Liam gritted his teeth, but he stayed put. Nox, however, ignored him and continued addressing the pack. "However, we have a problem," he said calmly, but I could see the anger simmering beneath. "The Grey Moon Pack has committed treason," he declared loudly. Murmurs erupted again, and everyone's faces were confused. "Treason? How?" "Nox," Alpha Maxwell called from where he stood. He also looked confused. "What are you saying? How?" he asked. Nox gave them an icy glare. "This pack has insulted me," he declared furiously. Everyone looked even more confused. I could see them exchanging confused glances. "You insulted my mate. You called her a whore because I told her to come with me," he bellowed in fury. The atmosphere was tense, and I could see fear in the faces of some pack members. No one dared to speak, not even Alpha Maxwell. "I will not overlook all the insults and ridicules that my mate endured for being associated with me. By disrespecting my mate, you've insulted your Alpha King and our laws. An offense to her is an offense to me," Nox declared with a deadly glare. This was nothing like the Nox I knew. This was the Alpha King himself. His presence was commanding and overwhelming. His words caused fear to grip every pack member. Nox glanced at me briefly, and his dark eyes softened. He stepped closer to me and pulled me closer to him with his arm around my waist. Nox's arm around my waist felt both reassuring and terrifying. I knew he was trying to protect me, but the power radiating off him reminded me that I wasn't just standing next to my mate, I was standing next to a king. "You are not going to punish them, right?" I asked him unsurely under my breath. He tensed, and he avoided my eyes, staring out at the panicking crowd instead. A group of huge and scary-looking werewolves entered the hall with dark looks on their faces. Their footsteps echoed in the hall as they surrounded the hall, blocking off the entries and exit points. Nox must have sent for them. I could see the faces of the people who had taunted and mocked me. I could see the fear on their faces as they glanced at each other in worry and panic. However, I felt no satisfaction. Even though these people had mocked me and made my life hell, all I wanted to do was move on and leave those things behind. "Nox," I muttered softly under my breath. They didn't know. Nox gave me a sideways glance. "This should teach them to respect everyone and to treat people better," he replied lowly. "Nox, please," I pleaded. "I really just wanted to leave and put this pack behind me. Let's just leave this behind. I don't want revenge. I just want to move on." He clenched his jaw, and for a moment I thought he might ignore me. But his eyes turned to mine with an exasperated sigh. "Fortunately for this pack," he started grudgingly with a scowl, "Arya is an angel, and she has pleaded on your behalf." His scowl deepened. "This doesn't end here. Words have power, and your words have hurt my mate, your Luna Queen. Apologies must be made. I could see as the faces of some pack members soured. Murmurs of confusion and displeasure could be heard. Nox growled deeply, and the room fell silent. His warriors tensed slightly, ready to pounce. Nox tightened his grip on my waist slightly as he spoke. Every single one of you in this pack has called her names, spread rumors, or stood by while others did, so you must apologize. Maxwell stepped forward with a displeased look on his face. Nox, I think you are going out of line now. Arya was just an oman. Before I could blink, Nox lunged at Maxwell, grabbing him by the throat and lifting him slightly with a hand. The sound of gasps and screams echoed through the crowd. Maxwell's eyes widened in disbelief and fear. How dare you challenge me? Nox growled. His eyes flashed crimson again. First, she is your Luna Queen, so you don't call her Arya. Second, just because you are my older brother doesn't give you the right to challenge me, he snarled. Liam tried to step forward with a growl, but his mother grabbed his hand and shook her head subtly at him. Unless you do want to challenge me. Do you want to challenge me, brother? Nox asked, tilting his head tauntingly with bared teeth. I stood there watching the scene petrified. Nox was almost unrecognizable. My heart pounded in fear, and my hands were shaking. Nox, I called, my voice shaking. I couldn't help the shiver that ran down my spine when his gaze landed on me. His eyes widened when he noticed how scared I was, and he instantly released Maxwell from his grip. Maxwell fell to the ground pathetically, gasping for air. His mate, Flora, and Liam ran towards him to help him up. Veronica just stood there, quaking in fear as she stared at Nox. Nox turned to the petrified crowd with a snarl. Let it be known from this moment on that any word spoken against the Luna Queen will be seen as treason, and the punishment for treason is death, he declared. Now apologize, he bellowed furiously. They didn't need to be told twice. The pack members dropped to their knees quickly, stammering apologies. I could see some that refused to apologize even though they were on their knees, but I ignored them. I didn't want anything to set Nox off again. I sighted Claire from the crowd. Her eyes were burning with envy, and her face was twisted into something ugly. I quickly turned my gaze away. Nox turned to me, lifting an eyebrow, and I nodded firmly. Then he turned to his family. You too, he gritted out. Maxwell, Flora, Veronica, and Liam gave him looks of disbelief, but they grudgingly obeyed and knelt down, except Liam. They murmured apologies, except Liam. Nox's eyes darkened as he stared at Liam. Arya's point of view. Liam stood with defiance in his posture as he glared at Nox with contempt. Nox's eyes darkened, and he made to step forward, but I quickly held his hand. He turned to me, his eyes burning with anger. Please, just let him be, I pleaded, begging him with my eyes. I was tired of the confrontations and really just wanted to go now. He scowled fiercely at the insolent Liam. Then, with a frustrated sigh, he turned away. Let's go. I don't have time for foolish boys, he growled, holding my hand. However, Liam was an idiot. No, you can't fucking waltz in here and claim her like that. I won't fucking allow it, Liam growled venomously. Nox paused and glanced back at him, raising an eyebrow. I could hear the watching crowd murmur and whisper among themselves. Oh, is that so? And why won't you allow it? Nox asked with a deadly calm voice. His gray eyes were like a thunderstorm. Liam took another step forward, his wild eyes burning with malice. Because she is my fucking mate. She is mine. The crowd gasped at his words. Veronica's eyes widened, and her mouth gaped open as she glanced fearfully at everyone. Liam, I don't think, she started. But Liam was too far gone. He wasn't listening to anyone. She is my fucking mate. We've been together for years. Then you come out of nowhere to fucking claim her, he yelled. his eyes dilated with maniacal anger. Now everyone's gazes darted from me to Veronica to Liam and then to Knox. I flushed slightly at the unwanted attention. Knox smirked, but his eyes were icy. "But you rejected her, didn't you? You rejected her and took Veronica, lying to everyone that she was your fated mate because of your foolishness." Veronica paled, looking like the ground should swallow her where she stood. Meanwhile, Liam's parents looked like they had swallowed something sour. They weren't aware of this all this while. Knox wasn't done. "And then that night you rejected her. The moon goddess brought her to me, my little miracle." His voice softened, and his eyes were warm as he gazed at me. Liam spluttered. "I don't fucking accept this," he yelled foolishly. His parents were shaking their heads in shame, while Veronica fainted in horror. The hall was loud with murmurs of disbelief and surprise. Knox sneered at him and turned away dismissively. "Let's go, Arya. We're done here," he stated, holding my hand gently as we walked down the stage. As I looked at the crowd, I saw Mama Fells. She stood by the doorway of the grand hall, beside one of Knox's warriors. She had an amused smirk on her face as she watched the unfolding scene like a movie. When she caught my gaze, she smiled with glee. I couldn't help the light chuckle that escaped me. Knox looked at me and followed my gaze. However, when his gaze landed on Mama Fells, her smile vanished instantly. There was a cold look on her face as she stared at Knox. Knox gave a blank stare. I furrowed my brows in confusion. Knox gave Mama Fells a fake smile that barely reached his eyes, and Mama Fells returned the gesture. Mama Fells's warnings echoed in my mind again, and I frowned slightly. Just as we were walking toward the entrance, I heard gasps and a shout. "Liam, no!" It sounded like Flora. I couldn't help but turn. My heart pounded in my chest, and fear gripped me as I saw Liam in his wolf form, diving at me with a snarl. I froze in fear, and my life flashed before my eyes. However, quicker than a lightning bolt, Knox quickly stood in front of me and backhanded the wolf with crushing force. Liam's wolf flew across the room and slammed against the wall with a deafening crack. I slapped my hand over my mouth in shock at Knox's display of strength. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. Knox wasn't done, with his eyes glowing red. He quickly stormed toward Liam's wolf, who was struggling to stand. The people scrambled out of the way in fear to let Knox pass. I couldn't bring myself to try to stop Knox. Liam had brought this on himself. I shuddered as I remembered the terror I had felt when I saw Liam's wolf lunging at me. If not for Knox, Liam's large wolf would have devoured me with its large jaws. I watched as Knox stormed toward Liam with death in his eyes. Flora ran to intercept Knox, pleading with him. "Please, Knox. Please, Your Majesty. He is your nephew. He is a child. Just a boy. He doesn't know what he is doing." Knox swatted at her like she was a fly as he continued stalking toward Liam. I knew it. Knox would kill Liam, but I couldn't find it in me to try to stop him. For some reason, I couldn't move as I watched Knox land a punch to Liam's wolf's side. His wolf whimpered in pain. Flora cried out, kneeling and begging Knox. Maxwell jumped forward to stop his brother, but Knox backhanded him, and he flew back, slamming his head against the wall. He didn't move. Flora shrieked in horror as she ran to her mate, crying in pain. None of the other pack members dared to come forward, not even Maxwell's beta. None of these moved Knox as he punched Liam's wolf over and over. I stood frozen in fear. Flora turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Please, stop him, Your Majesty." I still couldn't move as I stared at Knox in horror. A firm hand landed on my shoulder, and a familiar voice whispered softly in my ear. "You are the only one that might have a chance of stopping him. He will not want to kill his nephew like this," Sean advised. I took a shaky step forward. My whole body trembled with fear as I watched Knox mercilessly land hit after hit on Liam. Liam's wolf couldn't take the pain anymore, and Liam shifted back to his human form. Knox paused, and from his hands claws stretched out. He struck them out, aiming for Liam's heart with murder in his crimson eyes. Arya's point of view. My heart pounded in my chest as I lunged forward. "Knox," I yelled. Instantly, he froze. Then he turned to me slowly. I resisted the urge to gasp at the murderous look on his face. "Please don't," I pleaded. His crimson eyes were glowing unlike anything I had ever seen. Those claws on his hands were probably from his wolf, but I had never heard of anyone being able to transform their hands into claws while still in human form. Everything about Knox was like a mystery, like some dark mystery that I was scared of unraveling. I couldn't say anything to him. I just kept my gaze on his, pleading with my eyes. Even as I shook slightly in fear, he kept looking at me, studying and watching. Then, with a loud growl, he swiped his claws at Liam. Flora screamed in terror, while my eyes widened. The crowd that were watching gasped in horror. However, relief coursed through me as I saw that Knox didn't plunge his claws into Liam's heart as he originally wanted to. Instead, he raked his claws across Liam's face, leaving behind a very bloodied face. Liam was already unconscious, so he didn't react. Knox straightened up and turned away from Liam's body with a sneer on his face as he kicked the limp body aside. "When he wakes up, tell him that the Luna Queen saved his life," Knox growled. Flora nodded frantically. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Then she ran to her son's side, with tears running down her face. "Somebody help me," she cried out, glancing around. Maxwell was still unconscious on the ground. Everyone was hesitant to come forward to help. They did not want to be Knox's next victims. Knox walked past me without glancing at me or saying anything to me, and I was too paralyzed with fear to say anything to him. It was Sean that tapped me lightly on the shoulder. "Come on, let's go. Time to leave the Grey Moon Pack," he declared. Finally, it was time to leave this pack. However, as I followed Sean, I wondered if I really wanted to leave anymore. As I walked by, I caught Mama Fels's eyes, and I remembered her words. Was this what she was trying to warn me of? I wondered. She gave me a reassuring smile that did nothing to help my nerves. "My bags are in my room. I have to go get them," I told Sean as he tried to lead me out. He shook his head. "We've taken it already. Everything is in the car," he replied. As we got outside, my eyes widened slightly at the fleet of sleek black cars that were packed outside. I was led to one of the ones in the middle. As I was entering the car, I looked up to see Knox coming out of the pack. I opened my mouth to say something to him, but he didn't even glance at me as he walked past the car I was entering to another car. I frowned slightly as my heart clenched. What was going on with him? I wondered. Sean tried to keep me entertained during the ride, but I wasn't interested. At the end, he gave up and focused on his phone. I felt bad because it wasn't his fault that I wasn't in a good mood. Throughout the ride to the Moonshadow Pack, I wasn't able to focus on the road or anything else. I was worried. Did Knox not want me to come anymore? Maybe I should tell the driver to stop the car so that I could leave. I wasn't going to leave my pack to follow Knox to a strange pack where he wouldn't even talk to me or acknowledge me, like Liam. If he didn't want me to come again, he could just tell me. At that thought, tears gathered in my eyes. What if Knox was regretting bringing me with him? I wondered. Things were going smoothly, so why did he suddenly become cold to me all of a sudden? Was it because I stopped him from killing Liam? Did he think that I stopped him because I still loved Liam, or was he angry that I had challenged him? I kept thinking so deeply about it that I fell asleep without even knowing. Warm arms engulfed me as I slept, and I snuggled closer into those arms with a happy sigh. Those arms felt like heaven, and they smelt so perfect. "Oh, my innocent little angel," a familiar voice murmured softly. "I really don't deserve you." There was so much sadness in that voice that it broke my heart. I felt like reaching forward to console this person. However, Sleep dragged me back before I could fully wake up. Knox was standing in front of me, his back turned. I tried to call out to him, but no sound came from my lips. He began to walk away, and my heart dropped. I began to run after him, but no matter how fast I moved, the distance between us kept increasing. My voice finally broke free. "Knox," I screamed. He paused for a moment and turned his head slightly. His eyes were glowing with crimson color, and they looked so cold and distant, nothing like the warmth that I was used to. "You shouldn't have come with me," he said coldly, and without any form of emotion. "What?" I whispered, feeling like my heart was being squeezed. "Knox, what are you talking about?" "I don't want you here, Arya," he said with finality in his voice. "You are just a distraction, a burden. Go back to where you belong." I stumbled back as pain flashed through my heart. "But I belong with you," I muttered softly. "No, you don't," he said icily. "You should have stayed with Liam, at least he wanted you." Tears streamed down my face, and I shook my head, trying to get closer to him. But every step I took increased the distance between us. "Knox, please," I tried to plead. "Goodbye, Arya," he said coldly, as he turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving me all alone. I fell to my knees as I began sobbing uncontrollably. "Knox," I sobbed. "Arya's point of view." I jolted awake with tears on my face, and I couldn't stop sobbing as the pain from the dream lingered. I had to keep reminding myself that it was just a dream. It wasn't reality. However, I felt so uncertain. With the way Knox had acted a few hours ago, was it just a dream? I blinked in disorientation as I finally noticed where I was. My eyes widened as it dawned on me that I was not in my room, neither was I in the Grey Moon Pack anymore. No, this must be the Moonshadow Pack, Knox's pack. I sat up slowly on the bed as I glanced round the room. The room was so large that I couldn't even call it a room. My old room could probably fit into this one at least 10 times over. The room was so beautiful and grand, but it still felt warm and inviting. The walls were painted a soft pink. Back in my old room, my bed was barely big enough to stretch out on, but this bed was so massive I could roll over 4 times and still not reach the edge. The mattress was so soft it felt like I was sinking into a cloud, and the thick velvet canopy made it look more like a throne than a bed. After a few minutes of gawking at the room, a sudden pressure in my bladder reminded me that I needed to pee. I slowly got down from the bed and walked barefooted towards the bathroom. I reached for the door that I thought led to the bathroom, but as I turned the handle, I found myself stepping into a walk-in closet instead. My eyes widened in surprise at what I saw. The closet was enormous, far bigger than my entire old room, with so many rows of clothes hanging on racks. There were shoes, more shoes than I had ever seen in my life, lined up on shelves, and to my astonishment, everything inside there was all my size. I slowly walked through the closet in amazement as I admired everything. There were dresses, pants, skirts, tops, and shoes in every color and style. It was overwhelming, and for a moment I just stood there. I quickly shook my head and turned to leave. The pressure in my bladder was starting to get worse, and I couldn't waste any more time in the closet. I noticed the bathroom door just after the closet and rushed inside. The bathroom was huge and beautiful. The floor was made of shiny white marble, and in the middle of the room was a large bathtub that looked deep enough to completely sink into. Around it was scented candles and bottles of fancy bath oils. Everything about the bathroom was so elegant. It felt so fancy that I almost didn't want to use it. However, in all these things, I noticed something disturbing. There was no sign of Knox's things here. In the clothes, the shoes, the towels, everything, none of them belonged to Knox. Did that mean that I wasn't going to stay with Knox? Was this my room alone, separate from him? I felt confused and disappointed. All these elegant and beautiful things wouldn't matter to me without Knox. Maybe I should go find him. I thought to myself, I needed to understand my status with Nox. Immediately, I stepped out of the room. I realized my error. I was in a strange environment. I didn't know anywhere in this place, and I didn't see anyone else that I could ask for directions. I glanced up and down the long and deserted hallway, feeling lost. I didn't even know where to start. Should I turn left or right? Where would I even find Nox? My heart pounded as I realized I couldn't just wander aimlessly. This wasn't the Grey Moon Pack, and I didn't know the rules here. Just as I thought of turning back, someone appeared at the far end of the hallway. To my joy, it was Sean. He had a smile on his face as he approached me. "Good morning, Luna Aria," he greeted me. The title pinched me internally as it reminded me that my status had changed. "Come on, Sean. Please call me Aria," I told him. From the look on his face, he wasn't going to listen to me. I sighed. "I need your help," I told him. I felt guilty when I remembered how I had been too nice to him during the car ride. However, he didn't look bothered or offended by my earlier behavior. Instead, his smile grew wider. "Of course, Luna. What do you need? Do you know where Nox is?" I asked. Sean's smile faded instantly at my question, and he cringed slightly. Well, I know where the Alpha is, but I would not suggest that you go there," he admitted. I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion. "What? Why? What happened?" I asked. He chewed the insides of his mouth anxiously. Then he released a sigh. "Alpha Nox is pissed. He has been furious since we got back from the Grey Moon Pack. Whenever he is that pissed, we try as much as possible to avoid him." "Why?" I probed. "Because anyone could become a victim of his anger," Sean replied. My heart sank at Sean's words. What could Nox be so angry about? Was it me? "I need to see him," I said firmly, ignoring how reluctant Sean was. "Luna, I really don't think." "Sean, please," I interrupted, with a plea in my voice. "I need to talk to him. There are so many things I don't understand right now. I need to know what is going on." Sean released a reluctant sigh as he rubbed the back of his neck. "All right, but don't say I didn't warn you. I'll take you to his office." Aria's point of view. Throughout our walk to Nox's office, I was worried. What if my dream was actually reality? What if Nox really didn't want me in his pack? I bit my lips in thought. Sean was visibly tense. I could see it in the way he moved stiffly. I furrowed my eyebrows. Was that how scary Nox's anger was? Even his gamma was scared of him. I winced as the image of Liam's limp body flashed through my mind. Nox had brutally beaten his nephew almost to death. So maybe his anger was that scary. I kept my head down as we walked past some of the pack members. I could feel their curious gazes on me as they wondered who I was. Nox hadn't yet introduced me, so they didn't know who I was. "Sean," a voice called from behind us, and Sean turned around with a bright smile. "Hunter." Hunter strolled towards us with a confident strut and a small smirk on his face. They did some sort of bro handshake as they greeted themselves like brothers. However, I didn't see any similarity between them. Hunter had pale blonde hair and blue eyes that gleamed with mischief. He had a leaner frame than Sean, and he was slightly shorter than Sean. Sean turned to me with a broad smile. "Luna, this is the beta of this pack. Beta Hunter," he introduced him. Hunter's eyes narrowed slightly at Sean's words as he studied me. "Is this her, the Luna Queen?" he asked Sean, still watching me with a sharp gaze. He said, "Luna Queen," with a sour look on his face. His words and mannerisms caused slight annoyance to flare within me, but I swallowed it down. I was a stranger here, and today was my first day. I didn't need any sort of confrontation now. I needed to find Nox first and settle things with him. Sean noticed the tension and cleared his throat nervously as he shifted in unease. "Yes, this is the Luna Queen, Luna Aria," he replied, giving Hunter a look that Hunter completely ignored. Hunter hummed thoughtfully, just assessing me with a condescending look in his eyes. I didn't have time for whatever he was doing, so I turned to Sean, subtly dismissing Hunter. Come on, let's go find Knox. I walked away without waiting to see if Sean would follow. Nice to meet you, Luna Queen, Hunter called after me with a mocking tone in his voice. Sean tensed slightly from beside me, but he kept quiet. After a minute, he finally spoke. I am sorry about that, he started. I turned to him, lifting an eyebrow in question. About Hunter, he added. I don't know what had gotten into him, he doesn't. I cut him off. Look, Sean, there is no need to apologize on his behalf. I really have better things to worry about for now. I don't blame him for his reaction. I am an Omega for goodness sake, I replied, feeling a slight lump in my throat. I knew that Hunter's actions were not going to end with him. There were going to be so many others who didn't think I was worth being the Luna Queen. It was frustrating how I had left the Grey Moon Pack, and now I was here in this unfamiliar pack, dealing with worse. We finally reached the door of Knox's office, and Sean knocked softly with anxiety, written all over his face. There was no response. Sean gulped slightly as he knocked again. Who is that? Knox barked from the other side of the door, and Sean flinched slightly. It is me. And the Luna, he stammered out. There was silence for a moment before Knox finally spoke up. I don't want to see anyone. Leave, he growled out. His words pierced through me and confirmed my worst fears. Knox didn't want me here. I had made a very big mistake. Sean tensed slightly. Then he glanced at me with sympathy in his eyes. But, Alpha, he started, but Knox cut him off with a bone-chilling growl. I said leave, he snapped. My heart broke. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't what I had seen happening on my first day in this unfamiliar pack. I am sorry, Luna, Sean whispered softly, as we both turned to leave. The pain in my chest intensified at Knox's dismissal. He wouldn't even talk to me. I gloomily walked back to my room. The beauty and elegance of the room looked dull in my eyes at that moment. Once alone in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed as my mind raced with everything that was going wrong in my life. Knox's growl replayed in my head. It felt worse than a rejection. My wolf whimpered slightly at the thought of a rejection. I buried my face in my hands, breathing heavily. I had already left behind my pack, my life, everything I had ever known, to follow him, and now it felt like he didn't even care. My dream from earlier flashed through my mind again. You shouldn't have come with me. You are just a burden. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I quickly brushed them off. I wasn't going to cry, not for him. If Knox didn't want me here, I would leave. Maybe it was a mistake to think I could ever be anything more than an Omega. Some hours later, I hadn't eaten or moved from the bed where I lay, even though my stomach growled relentlessly in hunger. I released a deep breath as determination set in. I was going to try to talk to Knox again. I stood up and freshened up in the bathroom, ignoring the hunger in my stomach as I walked out of my room. I knew the route Sean had led me along, so I would go myself. I ignored the looks I got as I walked with purpose towards Knox's office. Luna, Sean called from behind me, sounding out of breath. He must have seen me from afar and ran after me. Do you need anything? He asked in concern. I shook my head. I am going to Knox's office again. Sean's face fell in dismay. Luna, he started, but I cut him off. Let me just try again, I stated. Luna Aria, let me take you on a tour of the pack instead. Knox is not in a better mood yet, he pleaded, but I had made up my mind. Going on a tour of the pack makes no sense if I am not going to stay, I replied and walked off. Sean ran after me. But, you are his mate, the Luna Coup. Don't call me that, I muttered bitterly, walking faster. I was just an Omega who was deceiving herself to be more. Sean silently followed me. As I got to Knox's office door, I raised my hand to knock, but the door opened. It wasn't Knox who stepped out. Arya's point of view. It was a beautiful female werewolf that reminded me so much of Veronica. She was tall, and she had long pale blonde hair and familiar blue eyes that stared at me with a sneer. "Yes, what is it?" she sneered, closing the door behind her. Several thoughts raced through my mind. Who was this lady? And what was she doing in Knox's office? I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion. It was Sean that replied, "She is here to see Knox, Astrid." She lifted an eyebrow as she glanced between the two of us. "What does an Omega want with the Alpha King?" she said with a slight smirk on her face. Her blue eyes sparkled with mischief. I knew that she knew who I was. She was mocking me. Again, it was Sean that replied tensely. "She is his mate, Astrid, the Luna Queen," he said with a warning look in his eyes. Astrid looked me up and down. "Oh, really?" I pushed down the irritation that crept up at the tone of her voice. "And you are?" I asked, keeping my voice calm even with the anger I felt. Her smirk widened and she tilted her head. "Astrid Eta Hunter's sister." I blinked. "Hunter's sister?" "Yes," she replied casually, "and a very good friend of Knox's." There was something in her tone that made my heart sink. "Astrid," Sean said with warning in his voice, "just leave." She glanced at him, raising an eyebrow. "Why, I am trying to introduce myself to the young lady here." I clenched my fists at my sides. It was obvious that she was older than me. She was taunting me with it. She looked to be in her mid-20s like Sean, so she was at least 5 years older than I was. I decided to ignore her. Her taunts and mocking words were not important to me right now. "Is Knox in there?" I asked sharply. She frowned slightly in annoyance that I didn't react to her taunt. "He doesn't want to be disturbed," she replied immediately, and she didn't look like she was going to move away from the door. Rhea, my wolf, snarled in annoyance, but I calmed her down. Sean looked fed up. "Astrid, leave now," he ordered with a firm voice. She lifted her head stubbornly. "You can't tell me what to do. My brother is the beta of this pack." "Exactly, your brother, not you. You don't have a title. I am the gamma of this pack, and I have the backing of the Luna Queen herself. Leave Astrid or I will take it as a challenge," Sean threatened. Astrid's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected Sean to support me like that. She scoffed and stepped away. "You'll be hearing from my brother soon, Sean," she sneered, and walked away after throwing me a venomous glare. No was in that office. He must have heard everything, but he didn't defend me. He allowed Astrid to mock me. I turned to Sean with a grateful look. "Thanks for that." He shook his head. "It is nothing. Astrid just needs to be put in her place." I didn't knock on the door. I stared instead at the path she had followed. "Sean," I called softly, and he turned to me with a wince. He knew what I wanted to ask. "Is there anything between the both of them?" I asked, scared of the answer. He released a sigh. "It was a long time ago. Knox ended it years back, but Astrid didn't want it to end, so she is still hanging around." I ignored the pain that stabbed my heart as I nodded. It felt like Liam all over again, being rejected for a female from the Beta's family. I hesitantly lifted my hand to knock on his door. I knocked softly, but he didn't respond. I knocked again more firmly. Knox's voice boomed through the door. I said I didn't want to see anyone. "Leave," he bellowed. My heart clenched, and I closed my eyes in resignation. There was no need. I turned to Sean, even as tears pricked the corners of my eyes. "Let's go," I told him. Maybe I should just give up, I thought to myself. Bitterness settled in my chest as I remembered all the promises that Knox had given me that made me leave my pack. Now I couldn't even go back to the Grey Moon pack because of what he did to Liam, among other things. I really had nowhere else to go. Was this how I was going to live in this pack, feeling miserable and unwanted? I paused in my steps. Number, I wasn't going to just accept his dismissal. I deserve an explanation. I might be a worthless Omega, but I was also his mate who he had promised to always cherish. I deserve an explanation. When Sean noticed that I wasn't walking with him, he turned to me with furrowed eyebrows. Lun. I shook my head in disagreement. I am not leaving, I said firmly. Please. Maybe we should wait till he is in a better mood, Sean suggested with wide eyes. But I was no longer listening to him. At that moment, I felt like I was channeling a hint of Mama Fells. I didn't give a damn about Knox's mood swings. I deserved better. I stormed back to his door and knocked firmly on it. What? Who is that? I said. I didn't want to be disturbed, Knox snapped in annoyance. I ignored him and twisted the handle of the door. It was locked. I knocked on the door more firmly this time. Knox, open this door right now, I seethed. I was done playing nice. Arya's point of view. Knox, open this door right now, I seethed. There was no response. I knocked harder on the door again. Knox. Sean's eyes were wide with terror as he tried to get me to leave. Luna, he whispered in fear. Please, maybe you should. No, Sean, I snapped, cutting him off. If he doesn't want me here, he can say it to my face. I won't be ignored. I pounded on the door again. Knox, I know you can hear me, I yelled. Sean tried again. Please, Luna. I shook my head firmly. You can go, Sean. This is between Knox and I. I don't want you suffering for anything, just leave, I told him. Sean gulped, but surprisingly, he didn't leave. I turned back to the door with determination in my mind. One way or another, Knox will have to see me. I pounded on the door. Knox, I swear to the goddess, if you don't open this door, I'll make a scene. I'll make a huge scene that every single member of this pack will know something is wrong, I yelled, and my voice echoed down the hallway. Sean had told me earlier that whenever Knox was pissed, people avoided this hallway, but now the noise I was making was drawing their attention. I resumed knocking and pounding on the door. Knox, if you don't open this door, I'll keep going until the whole pack is standing here wondering what is going on. Internally, I was surprised at myself. I had never done anything like this before. I didn't know I could do something like that. I didn't know where this boldness came from. But honestly, I was tired of people playing with my emotions, deceiving me and stringing me along. The hallway was starting to get busier, and I could hear some of the pack members whispering among themselves, while Sean was getting more antsy. The hallway began to grow busier. Pack members exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. I didn't care. Let them stare. Let them wonder. Knox, I yelled again. And just as I raised my hand to continue pounding on the door, it swung open forcefully. Immediately, everyone scattered in fear. Knox stood in the doorway. His eyes were blazing with fury, and he was breathing heavily. It was weird to see him look at me that way. What the hell are you doing, Arya? He growled lowly. I glanced around. I needed witnesses in case he decided to end me. However, I noticed that no one else was left except Sean. I winced internally. My heart pounded in my chest as I crossed my arms, but I didn't back down. What does it look like I am doing? I shot back. He glared at me. I am very busy, and I don't have the time for your childish games. If he said that to hurt me, he had succeeded. I had to take a moment to compose myself before I spoke. An unreadable expression crossed his face briefly as he saw that his words hurt me. I released a deep breath before I continued. I don't care if you are busy, Knox, I said firmly, stepping forward. You've been ignoring me since I arrived, and I am done being treated like I don't matter. If you didn't want me here, you should have told me instead of letting me give up everything to follow you. Sean finally tried to slip away quietly, but Knox turned to him with a sharp glare. Stay right there, Gamma Sean, Knox ordered, his tone cold. Sean froze with wide eyes, and he turned to me with pleading eyes. I rolled my eyes. Don't blame Sean for this. He has been nothing but helpful, unlike you. Knox's eyes shone with frustration, and for a moment I thought he would slam the door in my face. Instead, he stepped back. Fine, if you want to talk so badly, then get in. I didn't hesitate. I immediately stormed into the office, and Knox shut the door behind us. You have 5 minutes, he said flatly, standing behind his desk with his arms crossed. Say what you need to say and get out. His words and attitude stung, but I pressed on. I don't deserve to be treated like this. Knox, I left my pack, my home, to be with you because you made me believe you wanted me? Was it all a lie? Am I just a burden to you? He clenched his jaw, and for a moment I thought I saw guilt flash through his eyes. But it was gone quickly. It is complicated, Arya, he said in a calmer voice. Then explain it to me, I insisted, taking a step closer. Because from everything, it looks like you are pushing me away for no reason. If you are going to reject me, at least have the decency to say it to my face. Knox's eyes darkened, and he slammed his palm on his desk. Don't say things you don't mean, Arya. Don't avoid things you are too scared to face. Knox, I retorted, even as I willed myself not to cry. If you don't want me here, I'll leave. But you owe me the truth. My voice shook. I don't owe you anything, he growled. His eyes flashed crimson. It was a warning sign, but I didn't care. Yes, you do, I retorted, going closer to the desk. His eyes glowed crimson again, and he growled darkly. Get out, he yelled. I stared at him, even as tears welled up in my eyes. I refused to cry in his presence. Then reject me. Let me leave, I replied. He clenched his jaw and turned away, but he didn't say anything. I couldn't control the tears any longer, and they ran down my face. So you won't acknowledge me, and you won't reject me, I whispered. Bitterness flooded my chest, and I glared at him with tears in my eyes. You are worse than your nephew, Liam. I see where he learned it from, I spat venomously. Arya's point of view. I could tell that my words cut deep into him because his face fell. I ignored the pain in his eyes as I turned to leave, too furious to care. Arya, he called softly, but I was too angry to respond. I stormed out of his office with clenched fists and tears running down my face. Sean was waiting by the door with a nervous look on his face. His eyes widened slightly in relief when he saw me, but he winced when he saw my face. I furiously wiped the tears off my face and walked off. He followed me back in silence. On my way back to the room, several thoughts raced through my mind. Was this the end? Should I start preparing to leave? Immediately I got back. I waved Sean goodbye and closed the door, ignoring his look of pity. The moment the door closed, I dropped to my knees with a heavy sigh and held my head with my hands. I couldn't cry anymore, maybe because my tears were finished. Knox's indifference was very hurtful, but I felt like I had gone far by comparing him with Liam. The memory of his face and the pain in his eyes after my words kept replaying in my mind. For a moment, guilt settled in my stomach, but I quickly pushed it aside. No, I had every right to feel this way, didn't I? The way he had called my name, so soft and pleading, was something I couldn't forget. Why had he called out to me after I walked away? What if I had stayed? What would he have said? I crawled up to the bed and pulled the blanket tightly around me. My stomach growled relentlessly in hunger, and I was reminded that I hadn't eaten since morning. I winced. I was drained emotionally and mentally. I didn't want to stand up to look for where I could get food from. Just the thought of wandering around aimlessly while the pack members stared at the crazy Omega who kept pounding on the door of the Alpha King gave me shivers. My stomach growled again, and I winced at the hunger pangs. I was getting desperate. Maybe I could just risk it. A knock on the door brought me out of thoughts, and my heart skipped a beat. I glanced at the door. Who was that? For a moment I thought about ignoring it, But when my stomach growled again, I began praying it was Sean. Slowly, I pushed myself off the bed and walked to the door. When I opened it, no one was there, but there was a covered tray on the floor, and from the scent coming up from it, there was food in it. My mouth watered and my stomach growled. I glanced up and down the hallway, but it was empty. I cautiously picked up the tray, took it inside and set it on the bed. I stared at the food for a moment. My mind raced with questions. Who had brought it? Knox, Sean. What if it was poisoned? The thought crossed my mind, but I brushed it aside. I was too hungry to care. If I die, I die. At least this nightmare of a day would be over. With shaky hands, I lifted the cover of the tray to reveal a steaming bowl of mouth, watering soup, a loaf of freshly baked bread, a cup of warm tea, a plate of sliced fruits, and a bottle of water. I stared at the meal in amazement. It was probably the best-looking meal I had ever had in my life. For a moment, I forgot about my issues with Knox, and I smiled. If this meal was poisoned, I would die a happy lady. I hurriedly grabbed a piece of the bread and took a bite. I almost moaned at the flavor of the bread. Even though I was hungry, I ate slowly because I wanted to savor each bite. When I was finally full, I kept the tray on the floor, at the corner of the bed with a satisfied sigh. Now that I was no longer hungry, the ache in my chest was more profound. I sat on a chair in the room and wrapped myself in a blanket. It was obvious the food wasn't poisoned. Was the food Knox's way of apologizing, or was it Sean because he felt sorry for me? I kept thinking till I didn't know when I fell asleep on the chair. I didn't know how much time passed, but I awoke to gentle hands lifting me. I snuggled closer into the warm body that belonged to those arms with a satisfied sigh. When I felt myself being laid down gently on the very comfortable bed, my sleepy mind started to wake slowly. Slowly, I opened my eyes to find myself staring directly into Knox's gray eyes. My heart fluttered as I stared at those beautiful eyes. His eyes were full of uncertainty, guilt, and another emotion I couldn't place. "Knox," I murmured sleepily, closing my eyes as sleep tried to pull me under. However, when he turned to leave, panic surged through me and the sleep faded from my consciousness. "Knox, wait," I called softly. He paused with his back facing me. I remembered when he had called me, when I was in his office, and I had ignored him and left. The atmosphere was tense as I tried to think of what I wanted to say. Arya's point of view. His body was tense as he moved to walk away. My chest tightened. "Please," I called out softly, my voice cracking in exhaustion. He froze but didn't turn around. I sat up on the bed and ran my fingers through my hair in frustration. "I am tired, Knox," I whispered with pain in my voice. This isn't what I thought it would be. I paused to steady myself. I was done crying. This is not what I signed up for. I left everything behind, and for what? He stood silently, like a statue. "I prefer my old life to this, Knox," my voice said bitterly. At least there I knew where I stood. I knew who I was. I took a deep breath. "I want to go back," I said firmly. "I want to go back to the gray moon path." He tensed, and I could hear a sharp intake of breath. But still he didn't turn, he didn't argue, he didn't even flinch. It was as if my words meant nothing. My heart broke. I've been fooling myself all this while. "Look me in the eyes," I whispered, and my voice shook. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't let them fall. "Look at me, Knox, and tell me I am free to go." He hesitated. "Look at me, Knox," I cried out. He reluctantly turned, and I almost gasped. His eyes were red with unshed tears, and his body trembled as he turned to look at me. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Slowly I came down from the bed without breaking eye contact with him. "Tell me that I am free to go." "Knox," I whispered softly, almost inaudibly. He didn't move, he just kept staring at my eyes. I stepped closer and my voice shook. "Say something, Knox, please." His jaw tightened and he clenched his fists. His eyes were full of pain and guilt. But still, he said nothing. "You can't even give me this, can you?" I whispered bitterly. Knox's shoulders sagged, and for the first time he looked fragile and vulnerable. It shocked me. "I can't let you go, Arya," he finally murmured in resignation. I froze. "Why?" My voice cracked. He didn't reply. "Tell me why, Knox. Why can't you let me go?" I insisted. He shook his head furiously, refusing to reply. "Tell me," I snapped. "Because I am a selfish son of a bitch," he yelled out in frustration. I opened my mouth to ask him what he meant, but it was like a dam had broken, and Knox began to release everything. "I am selfish because I want you when I am not supposed to. I am selfish because I know the right thing to do is to let you go, but I can't." His voice cracked slightly. His voice dropped to a whisper, and he dropped to a chair with slumped shoulders. "I am selfish because I know I will ruin you, but I am still holding on," he muttered softly. I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion. What was he talking about? Where were all these coming from? What are you talking about, Knox?" "I don't understand," I replied, with a confused tone. He lifted his gaze slowly and gave me a sad smile. "I am not really a good person, Arya. I am not what or who you think I am," he said gravely. A chill ran down my spine at the foreboding tone in his voice. It sounded so much like Mama Fels's that it made my heart pound. "What are you saying, Knox?" I whispered. He gave me a bitter smile. "Oh, my little angel, I don't deserve you. I shouldn't have brought you with me." I scowled as frustration coursed through me. Why was he saying all this now? Is this why you've been ignoring me? Because you don't think you deserve me? He shook his head. "I wasn't ignoring you, Arya. I was trying to protect you from me." "Protect me?" I asked incredulously. "By shutting me out? By acting like I don't exist?" His jaw clenched. "It was the only way I knew how to keep you safe from me," he admitted. His words confused me and scared me. Keep me safe from him. I was getting frustrated by his vague answers. If you think you are so dangerous, then why bring me here in the first place? Why even try to be with me at all? Knox shrugged. "Because I am selfish, Arya," he admitted again. "I saw you, and I wanted you, and I didn't care what it would cost either of us." I released a sigh of frustration. "So why did you change your attitude towards me since you came here? I thought you said you wanted me, but since I came here, you haven't even acknowledged me." "Because I realized that I had made a huge mistake," he replied. "Why now, Knox? Why are you realizing this just now?" I demanded, my voice rising. He ran a hand through his hair. "That day when I almost killed Liam, I saw the look on your face, the fear, the terror, the horror on your face." He laughed bitterly. "I knew then that I made a mistake, a selfish mistake, dragging someone as innocent as you into my tainted world." Frustration boiled over within me at his words. Why was he hurting me and claiming that it was for my good? "What is your problem, Knox?" I demanded. "You keep saying you are selfish, but it is not selfishness to want something good for yourself. It is human. What is selfish is pretending I don't have a choice in this." He shook his head. "Arya." "No, Knox," I snapped, tears filling my eyes. "You don't get to make that choice for me, because you don't know what is best for me." Arya's point of view. He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "That day with Liam, was I scared? Yes, of course I was scared. I had never seen you like that before. The way you ruthlessly beat him up, it was something else." Knox flinched and he clenched his jaw. "Arya, I am not done," I interrupted, stepping closer. "But he deserved it. He was going to attack me. He kept pushing you, taunting you. So yes, I was scared, but it changed nothing between us. I still want you, Knox. My voice was firm, but my hands trembled. He stood up, shaking his head over and over. You don't get it, Arya. Haven't you seen how everyone looks at me? My own Gamma is terrified of me. This isn't about Liam or whether he deserved it. This is about me, what I am. I don't care, Knox, I snapped, my voice rising. I want you. You shouldn't want me, he barked. Not with what I am, not with what I've done. I clenched my fists in frustration. Knox was just going in circles, repeating the same vague excuses, never giving me the truth. Then tell me, I demanded. What are you? What is it that makes you so untouchable, so unworthy? Stop giving me half-truths, Knox, tell me. Knox froze. There was silence in the room for a long moment. I thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, he spoke up, just when I was losing hope. You want to know? He asked. His voice was filled with bitterness. You really want to know what I am? I nodded, even as my heart raced in my chest. I am cursed, Arya, he declared. I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion. What did he mean by that? He continued, looking away from me. I have a cursed wolf. He isn't just angry. He is bloodthirsty and violent. I can't control him. And when I lose control, people die. My breath caught in my throat. That explains why his eyes flashed crimson whenever he was angry. So, your eyes. He nodded his head with a sigh. Yes. Then he turned to me. This is what I am, Arya. A monster. I've lived with this curse for years. I was told I wasn't going to have a mate, and I believed it until I met you. Knox ran a hand through his hair. You were the light I didn't know I needed, but I finally realized that I would only hurt you like I've hurt everyone else. I shook my head. You are not going to hurt me, Knox. He scoffed. You don't know that. What if one day I can't hold him back? What if I lose control, Arya? What if he trailed off and he turned away, running a hand through his hair again? You won't, I said firmly, stepping closer. He took a step back away from me. I can't live with myself if I hurt you, he whispered. I stepped closer to him. You won't, I repeated firmly. He took another step back. You shouldn't want me, he muttered softly, gazing at me with pain in his eyes. I stepped closer again. But I do. I don't deserve you. Allow me to make that choice for myself, I retorted. He sighed. I can't have children. I am sterile. I blinked, processing what he just said. What? He released a sigh of frustration. I can't have children, Arya. I am sterile. That is part of the curse. Even if you stay, even if you accept me, I'll never be able to give you a family. I stared at him. He sounded so pained. Knox. I began softly, but he shook his head. You deserve someone who can give you everything, Arya. A mate who can give you a future, a family. I stepped closer, cutting him off. I don't care about that. He gaped at me in disbelief. How can you not care? That is everything, Arya. A family is what you should want. I reached out and took his hand in mine. What I want, Knox, is you, just you. I don't need anything else. We'll figure out the rest together. He shook his head. You'll change your mind. Then allow me to make that decision myself. But don't make that decision for me. What you think I deserve is different from what I actually want. I want you, I said firmly. Knox slumped in defeat, and he looked at me with a sad smile. You are too good for me, Arya. And you are too stubborn, I shot back. He clenched his jaw and looked away. I don't care if you think you are a monster, I said. I see the man who defended me, who saved me, who loves me. You are not a monster to me, Knox. He laughed bitterly. You don't know what you are saying. One day my wolf will take over, and you'll see the truth. You'll regret this, Arya. I shrugged. Then let me regret it. Let me make that mistake. Knox closed his eyes and began shaking his head. I am not afraid of you, I said firmly. He opened his eyes, and I could see how conflicted he was. He wanted to push me away from my protection, and he also wanted to hold me tight. I watched as he fought within himself about the decision to make. I gave him a warm smile. I love you, Knox, and no matter what you say, no matter how hard you try to push me away, I still love you and want you. At my words, it was as if something inside him finally broke, and he stepped towards me and pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly.